All right, let's start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Say What? And pretty much this is based off of a video I was just watching. Elder Pastor, Israelites are trending, Hebrew Israelites are trending, something along those lines. And as soon as he started the lesson, he was dealing with this guy, O'Shea Duke Jackson. And pretty much there was a comment that was put on his page that I want to highlight because just bear with me 1 second. I want to highlight that comment. That's why I labeled it Say What, because it's based off of a particular comment. I labeled it that Elder Pastor read, in the comment section. And I want to highlight that. So the comment came from an individual named Goldie for You NYC7. And he said, true Israelites don't ask for money. True Israelites don't belong to any wicked camps. And I said, what? No, first scripture that came to mind, I'm going to go to another one first. First scripture came to mind was something the Apostle Paul said. But also this scripture came to mind in Matthew the 10th chapter, which I want to highlight that. Matthew chapter 10. I'll start at 5. The point is a little further down. Matthew 10 and 5, it says, These 12 Yahweh shall send forth and commanded them, saying, this is the 12 disciples, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, which the other nations, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. Why? Because this message is not for them. The only message that they are to receive is the destruction of their empires and the up and coming slavery that they will have to suffer in the kingdom of heaven to pay for all of the crimes committed against us, for the controversy of Zion. It says, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So don't go to the heathens, don't go to the nations, but go rather to the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So we're not supposed to be teaching the nations about the kingdom of heaven. So when you go to Matthew, the 28th chapter, the 18th, 19th, 20th verse, that's Yahushua speaking to the disciples, which were about to become apostles, and telling them to go to all nations, making disciples of them, because you had Israelites scattered among these nations. So those people that Yahushua was speaking about are Israelites that were scattered abroad, that were going to be brought back to the fold. And eventually all Israel will be saved, but in this time only the elect. So it goes on to say, verse 8, heal the sick, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils, freely you have received, freely give. This is the point here. Provide neither gold, nor silver, nor brass in your purse, nor scrip for your for your journey, neither 2 coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves, for the workman is worthy of his meat. So the bottom line is, this individual, Goldie for You NYC7, said that true Israelites don't ask for money. Well, does that make Yahushua not a true Israelite? Because he told his disciples not to provide any money or whatever, no script, no purse, nothing, but go and just preach the word, and the people are supposed to take care of you if you're teaching and preaching the correct doctrine. Now the first scripture that actually came to mind was in 1 Corinthians, the 9th chapter, and we're going to start at the 7th verse, because the Apostle Paul had a problem, the Church of Corinth had a problem with the Apostle Paul, and like Elder Apostle Gabar always says, the reason why the Apostle Paul wrote so many, the longest letters to the Corinthians, is because he had the most problems out of the Corinthians, right? And this, because they didn't want to give him no money. They were saying this guy's asked for too much money and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. They're pretty much taking a stance for Goldie for You NYC7, right? He might have been in the church of Corinth, one of them wicked ones. It says, who go 1 Corinthians 9:7, who goeth a warfare any time at his own charges? And the answer to that is none. No one ever when you hire an army, that army is going to fight for your kingdom, to protect your rights, your kingdom, your realm, so on and so forth. Your laws, your regulations, so on and so forth. And it was the job of the king or the sovereigns or the ones in charge to pay the charges to the soldiers that were going to war. It says, who planted the vineyard and eateth not of the fruit thereof? Right, you're not going to plant a vineyard and not eat of the fruit, right? Because this is a labor. It's a labor of love, but nevertheless, it is a labor. And when, you have individuals asking questions and, and you have to stop what you're doing and do research, that takes time. Like Elder Pastor said, you can't work 2 jobs and be a scholar. You won't be able to work 2 jobs and be able to still, after you get off those 2 jobs, come home and do your studies and answer all these different questions. It's impossible. This is a spiritual warfare, right? It says, or who feedeth the flock and eateth not of the milk of the flock? It's just simple logic. If you are providing spiritual things, as the Apostle Paul is going to say, it's the job of the congregation to take care of you. And we don't really stress on that. These other groups, they stress on Patreon and Cash App and, send your money, send your donations, send this and that. We don't stress on that because we know, and at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is going to take care of us. It says, say I these things as a man, or saith not the law the same also? Right, because that is what the law is saying. And he used a scripture in the law to provide, an example of, of an animal, an ox, working in the field that would not be muzzled, because when he gets hungry, he has to eat. And that's the same thing with the men of the Lord. They go out there, they get hungry, they have to eat. Right? And if they're constantly doing the work, then they don't really have time to do much of anything else. So how are they going to be provided for? See? For it is written in the law of Moses, thou shalt not muzzle the mouth of the ox that treadeth out the corn. Does the Most High take care for oxen? And the answer to that is yes. The Lord does take care of oxen. They have a job. They were created to do the heavy lifting for the farmers, for the husbandmen. But at the same time, the husbandman had to take care of those oxen, feed them, put them up, in wherever he had them, whether they were outside or in a barn or whatever the case may be. He had to water them, he had to wash them, take care of them. And then there comes a time when that oxen gets to a certain age, and he slay that oxen and eat it. Or saith he it altogether for our sakes? For our sakes, no doubt, this is written. Thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. That he that ploweth should plow in hope, and he that threshes in hope should be partaker of his hope. Okay? It says, if we have sown unto you spiritual things, is it a great thing if we shall reap your carnal? So is the Apostle Paul being wicked? Is he not a true Israelite, according to Goldie for you NYC7, because he's asking for money? Is he not providing a service? Did not the disciples, the apostles of the Lord, provide a service, a spiritual service to the body, to help build them up and establish them, to feed them with milk until they were fully grown, to care for them, to nourish them in the spiritual nurture of the scriptures? So should they not be taken care of? Of course the disciples had to be taken care of. Now in the case of the Apostle Peter and the apostles, they had what was known as a commune, where they, everyone sold their homes, their lands, whatever valuable they had and whatever money they had, they pooled it all together in a resource and brought it together in a commune, and everybody was, this is why, you had, the argument of the Grecian widows that were being neglected over the Hebrew widows, and there was a big ado about that. So the Apostle Peter had to set up righteous men, Stephen being ahead of that, to be able to provide things honestly for all of these widows. Okay. So it says, but the point is they had a commune. But the Apostle Paul didn't have a commune. And the thing is the Apostle Paul, who was linked with Barnabas was a part of that commune, but the Apostle Paul was not. You see? It says, if others be partakers of this power over you, are not we rather? This is what the Apostle Paul was telling the Corinthians. Nevertheless, and this is the thing, these guys, they'll speak out of emotions without having any sound wisdom, doctrine, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, no knowledge of the scriptures. That's why it says their fear towards me is taught by the precept of men. They don't have, a foundation of what the scriptures are saying. I mean, they just act out of emotion, or they repeat something somebody else says. Because for you to make a stupid statement like that, Goldie, for you, NYC7, true Israelites don't ask for money. Well, then that means does that mean Yahweh Shai was not a true Israelite? Does that mean that the apostles of the Lord were not true Israelites? Does that mean that the apostle Paul was not a true Israelite? Because they were constantly in necessity. It says, if we have if others have be partakers of this power over you, are not we rather? Nevertheless, we have not used this power, but suffer all things, lest we should hinder the gospel of Yahweh Shai. Do ye not know that they which minister about holy things live of the things of the temple? Right, because the Levites, they did all of the service of the temple. And guess what? Those services and certain sacrifices that they sacrificed served as their food. They would eat those sacrifices. Then they were provided with living quarters in the suburbs, the best parts of the different tribes, wherever they resided with. They didn't have they weren't husbandmen. They weren't out there plowing in the field and it's 6 a.m. I gotta go, officiate the business of the Levitical priesthood. No. That was all that they were involved in, just the priesthood. And the services of the priesthood, which was a big, I remember years ago reading about the intricacies and how much work the Levites had to do, and I was like exhausted just reading about it. I was like, damn, the Levites, they went through hell, as far as, their jobs and their duties and their description. So they were worthy to get the best of the meat, shoulder. They were worthy to get the best land. They would get worthy to get the best, to live in the best quarters because of their great sacrifice that they sacrificed for this truth. You dig? So how is not a true Israelite, how does that make you not a true Israelite if you ask for money? Now, if you have these clowns out here that's just begging for money, just to waste it on their BS, then that's different. They got a lifestyle that they got to uphold. The Apostle Paul was just, barely scraping through. There was even times when he even had to, go back to his profession as a tent maker to make a little extra dollar, a little extra food. For some extra food and whatever else he had to pay for. But for the most part, he was just doing the work, and the true believers were taking care of him. Same thing with the apostles. Same thing with Yahweh Shai. So it says, do ye not know that they which minister about holy things live of the things of the temple, and they that wait at the altar are partakers with the altar? Even so the Lord ordained that they which preach the gospel should live of the gospel. But I have used none of these things, neither have I written these things, that it should be so done unto me. For it were better for me to die than that any man should make my glory void. Because at the end of the day, the Lord is going to provide regardless. Let me see. And then he had the nerve to fix his thumbs to type in, true Israelites don't belong to any wicked camps. Well, Yahweh Shai, let me see, I believe that's Matthew 18. Just bear with me. Just want to get this real quick, make this point, and that's pretty much, the lesson. Then the main point was, true Israelites don't ask for money. I was like, well, because I thought at first, because I was listening to, walking around doing what I have to do, and I heard that. I thought it was O'Shea Duke Jackson that said that, but it was actually a comment, that was left by someone that watches O'Shea Duke, which shows you that he don't know the scriptures. These people that make these comments, for the most part, they're just spectators on the sidelines, don't know what the hell's going on. They're just running their mouth, talking shit, talking loud, ain't saying nothing, and because that's all they could do. They have nothing else better to do. This is Matthew 18. I can't find it the other way, so let me just try this. I'll just bring this one out instead. Right, this is Matthew 18 and 19. Again, I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Right? And did not Yahushua send the disciples out 2 and 2? That's pretty much what I was looking for. And he sent them out 2 and 2. What's that? That's a camp. And then there's another one. Let's go. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. Bear with I. This is also in the Gospels. And I'll end it off with this one here, unless the Spirit gives me something else. This is Luke 14. And I'll read the one in Matthew 2. I'll just go straight to the point. 22. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. See? So he sent them out to where? The highways and the hedges. Send them out 2 and 2. So that's what? Those are camps. These are the camps that were set up and established. All right? So it's not a true Israelite, that's teaching the true doctrine of Yahushua. If he's in necessity, he would have to ask for help. And the congregation would have to help him. A true Israelite would belong to a camp. And the reason why this individual said that, it won't belong to a wicked camp, because he don't want to part with any of his money, which fine, keep your money. And he doesn't want to go out in the camps because he's a soy boy. He's soft. He's not built like that. He's not a grunt. He wouldn't even last a day, a couple hours out there. So nothing, much less back in the days when we would be out there for 8, 9, 10 hours or more on the streets on that hard ass concrete. He would faint. And that's the problem with today's generation. A bunch of soft body individuals. Like you have these videos surfacing up on Instagram and even on YouTube of these older jakes in Chicago cursing out these YNs left, right, and center. These YNs was talking all that shit. You don't want to come to Chicago because we got them straps, we got this, we got that, we got blase, blase, blah. And guess what? Now that the National Guard is in there, the older jakes, they're saying, where you guys at? Where you young niggas at? Here it is, what I see out there is the older generation, the older people getting arrested, getting, harassed by these agents, women, with their children trying to get to work, a man, that his license is suspended, he knows he ain't supposed to be out there driving, but that's the only way he can get to work. So he vowed to take it easy until he can get his tax money, so he can get his license right. He's out there, people like that getting arrested, older heads. He said, where y'all at? All this shit y'all was talking, you're at home playing video games, talking to each other through the video games. One of them even said, look, I better not see it when this whole shit passes. I better not see any of you out there, with their masks. I'm gonna come snatch that mask off of your face and ask you where the fuck you been at. Talking all that shit. It sounds good when that's that studio gangster, that Instagram, TikTok studio video, gangster shit. But when it comes down to it and Esau roll on your ass, you ain't got nothing for them. These men are experts in handling weapons. You clowns can't even shoot straight. You can't even pee straight. Talking about these guys are out of shape. The individuals they sending to you, these guys are trained mercenaries, trained assassins. They're not your average American, big bloated individual in the military. These guys are fit. These guys have been in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, dealing with the hardships that you would faint if you were in the midst of that. And what proves that? They came to you, talk the shit. They don't want it with us. They better not come up in here. And they came up in there, and what you do? Hiding in your mama's living room, playing some goddamn video games, talking to each other on the video games. Them old Jakes is a man. There's not a sight of any of these YNs out there talking all that shit. That's what the Lord said. He's gonna silence you. That's why the scripture says that the Lord's gonna make a man more precious than fine gold, because these devils are coming. Jacob's trouble is really here, but it's going to intensify. And you little clowns that have been talking all that shit, you're going to get handled. You've been terrorizing people in the streets, older people, this and that and the other. Esau coming to get you. That's a good scripture, Psalm 17:13. That's the sword of the Lord. And he's going to wield that sword. He's going to bust your shit up. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.